Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer at the Government and Public Services for Deloitte. We're partnering with CDO Magazine in a series of interviews of government leaders. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Ren Essene, Chief Data Officer at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Ren, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your strategy, now that it's published, has certain key areas of focus. Is that something that you're willing to share with the audience on a little bit more detail of what that strategy entails on your focus areas and priorities?
With kind of a 1 to 3 year horizon. And we thought it'd be useful to have a unifying vision. So we did land on a vision that I think is really powerful. And that vision is that the CFPB leverages the full potential of data to meet its mission and proactively and securely shares quality data and research to keep pace with statutory mandates and an evolving data-driven economy. But I think underneath this, you'll see a lot of the key parts of our strategy, which is really built across 5 areas, 5 pillars, or 5 areas of priority. And the first one is increasing our external data publication. So with the Open Government Data Act, there's a greater call across all federal agencies for open data and increased transparency. And so we want to ramp up our data publication efforts to ensure that our agency partners and that the public, that they're able to find, able to access and use our publicly available Bureau data resources. So that's our first pillar and really critical and really a strong driver for us here in year one. We also, in year one, are working towards building a modern data platform. So this is centered around optimizing our migration to the cloud, reducing that technical debt, reducing costs, or maybe managing costs is a better way to say it, and really managing the redundancy within our systems. And that will help us to leverage our analytic capabilities to the greatest extent possible, which gets us to our third goal around enabling quality research and analysis. So that ties very closely into having the right infrastructure, the right people and tools to support our analysis. And then lastly, it's both increasing our awareness and knowledge about our data. So many CDOs right now, certainly in the federal space, are starting to look at their data catalogs and their data inventories as part of the Evidence Act, but really trying to make good on how do we know what data we have and how do we manage the information and knowledge about our data? How do we share that appropriately across the agency to really met out the value of the data that we have within our agencies? So that improved metadata management is really critical. And this also speaks to ensuring that our staff have an understanding about the type of data that we have, so that they know where to go to access it. They also know the guardrails about that data. And that gets us into fostering data literacy, our last priority. And this is really about both clarifying the data roles that exist. We have data stewards at our agency. That's something we would certainly recommend to any CDO, but we really need to strengthen that data stewardship role so that we can have more cross-divisional expertise, sharing of knowledge and information about our data, and really helping the CFPB to ensure that our staff have the skills and capacities that they need.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing not only the overarching pillars, but also going into all of those details, because that I think that's what's so exciting to me about your role is like how passionate you are about each of the verticals and the pillars you talked about, and how you're really thinking through on not just focusing on modernizing data platforms or not just the data catalog, but actually taking it all the way into how you're going to build that culture in the Bureau as well. So very, very fascinating to hear you lay out some of those details, Ren. But I keep thinking that getting something of this kind of a strategy together, it has not been definitely an easy task. And what I hear from CDOs a whole lot is definitely the stakeholder alignment issues that you talked about, but also they talk about how difficult it is sometimes to take it from strategy to action, right? One piece is to create that strategy, and that takes a while. And after listening, creating that strategy and that mission, how do you take it to the next level and actually make it operational and put it to action? So what are you thinking in terms of that? And what's your vision and your focus areas in that term?
That's a great question. Certainly, we are focused on having those actionable next steps. So again, I think we go back to that governance model. So for us, with the enterprise data strategy and the development of it, we had a very broad tent. That was something we really learned, right? Have many stakeholders, but really think about who knows data in your agency. It's not just your title about who knows data, right? So we had this broad group that came together, shared their expertise, and now we're going to slim that down and really think about a governance model of who needs to be at the table to help drive and develop those implementation plans, and who can help to ensure the kind of accountability and coordination. So again, the strong partnership across with our CIO, but also some other key partners for us around with our innovation team and with others who need to have a critical voice in how this gets implemented. One thing that I think is really interesting for us is that we've identified champions. Again, looking across the agency to say whose job is it, but also who's best suited in each of the priority areas to drive the work forward. And so, for example, for us, that could be our director of enterprise data analytics on modernizing our platform. That could be our innovation team and how we publish data. And with that, we're then, to get more broad, we're going back to building a series of campaigns. And this is going to be the way that we take that implementation plan, have some actionable goals. We are certainly focused on using a sprint method to create some small campaigns, some wins, some deliverables, show the value of what we're doing to leadership, and really build that momentum to get to some measurable progress.
That's great to hear, Ren. I mean, it seems like you have your plan laid out, you've got your campaigns and your sprints laid out. I know if the audience could ask questions at this point, they would probably be wanting to ask, like, hey, what is that first campaign or sprint that you're focusing on? Because modern data platforms, or whether it's the cataloging or the data publications, like you said. So which one is it that you are taking as your first sprint or campaign?
That is a great question. And in some ways, you have to keep moving the ball. You know, one of the things I think about data management is that it really is continuous improvement. You just keep moving the ball down the field. But at the same time, it's important to have that overarching theme. So for us, it really is taking and making good on that open data vision and the federal data strategy, and really working to publish more data. So getting our data out there and ensuring then that we have the data catalog and the modernized environment, the support systems and infrastructure around that vision to help make that successful.
I know the audience here would love to hear more from you. So maybe in a few months, we might circle back with you and see how your data strategy efforts are progressing and what's new on your horizon. But for today, thank you so much for joining me, Ren, and sharing your perspectives. And for the audience, please continue to visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews with phenomenal government executives. Thank you.
Thank you so much.